All right, here we are. It's July. We're headed to France. You can see we got 41 other people in the world here, and we're headed out doing the Mont Ventoux climb today. This is one I've been wanting to get on, been itching to give this one a go. I know this is going to be controversial, but I'm going to go ahead and max out the trainer difficulty. I feel like no matter what you do with trainer difficulty, it's poking the hornet's nest on Zwift, but felt like we had to. So we're just leaving town right now. Everything's getting loaded up. Also realized before I get on the climb proper, I got to switch to the lightweight setup, the lightweight brand wheels, and the Cannondale Evo frame. Can't be climbing mountains on the aero bike. So we're headed out. A little bit about Mont Ventoux. It is a famous Tour de France climb. Mont Ventoux, though, actually refers to the mountain itself, not the specific climb. So there are actually three ways up Ventoux. So on the far right, you have what's known as the quote-unquote easy way up Ventoux, and that's from Salt. On the far left, we've got Malusian, which all my pronunciations are going to be terrible here. I'm both Southern and American, so there's a lot of strikes against me. But that one is actually on another virtual cycling platform, which, I'll get to that later in this video. But this ascent that we're doing today is the one you see kind of middle bottom there. We're coming up from... The English pronunciation would be like Bedouin, but it probably is pronounced Bedon, something more like that. This is the version that's on Zwift here. This one is sort of the traditional Tour de France version of the climb. So I'm just going to pop around here and point out a few things I noticed, a few things that may be future developments on this route. Zwift has been pretty transparent about saying that they want to continue building this world out. I mean, they're always saying that about every world, but I do think that since France is so iconic in cycling, they will probably continue to work on this one as time goes on. So we're a few Ks into the climb proper here. This was the first thing I noticed that was sort of, unique to this route. Up to this point, it's kind of the same beautifully rendered, but just like rolling grassy hills and stuff that you might find in Watopia or on some of the other routes. Even the paint on the road. Well, that stuff is definitely a part of the Tour de France. On Zwift, it's not exclusive to these routes or these roads. I did want to point out 12%, 13% right here. That is a monster gradient. So this is early on. We're it says 6.5K. That's including sort of the lead in to the climb proper. So that's not exactly how far we've been climbing, but this was one of the first sections that really, really got steep. And this climb is actually not known for being like monster steepness like some of the climbs, especially in Grand Tours in recent years. They've been seeking out these insanely steep climbs. I think a lot of the legend of Ventoux is more that it's kind of a medium gradient climb, but it has a lot of variation in it and it's very long. So I'll point out those variations as we go up. They did a really good job of really populating these routes with a lot of fans though. So it does have a little bit more Tour de France feel. I wonder if they will leave that all the time like they have in Crit City or something, or if they will maybe like open this up to be sort of a more normal. I don't know. They could take those fans away. I've heard that they're going to make some changes this weekend for the first stage of the virtual tour. First two stages are going to be on Watopia, but I've heard they're going to make some like cosmetic changes to improve the Tour de France vibe or whatever. And I think that stuff will probably center around adding some crowds, adding some Tour de France banners and paint on the road and stuff like that. We'll see though. That's my speculation. That's my guess. Despite not really being quote unquote open yet, there were a couple other people out on the route today. I think this guy gives me a ride on. So yeah, it's nice to see, nice to have a little bit of company out there. That is one of the things I like about Zwift versus some other platforms. If I'm just going to go ride around, it is cool in Zwift that there's there are people out there. It doesn't feel like you're just in a void or whatever. So power wise on this climb, I wasn't really trying for like I guess whatever I do is going to be a PR because this is my first ascent, but I wasn't really trying to completely smash it because this was not all I did on the bike today. I guess I'll go ahead and talk about it. I wanted to do this version of the climb and then the RGT version of the climb, which RGT does the other side from Malusian, or however you say that. They also have a quote unquote Ventoux route, but it's not the same Ventoux. It's a different road up the same mountain. Later on, I'm going to do a more in-depth comparison between this Ventoux and that Ventoux, just because this is the first time those platforms have overlapped at all. They don't really have any of the same routes or same regions built out. So I think I don't know, it'll be interesting to put them next to each other. But I wanted to take the time today to do both of these climbs back to back. Power wise here, so again, I wasn't really trying to just like completely smash myself because I knew I had another effort coming up. So I did try to just peg it somewhere between like 3.5 watts a kilo and 4 watts a kilo. I think I was getting a little overzealous on some of these early slopes, but I was trying to play it pretty conservative. Even doing that though, it wasn't easy. There is no easy way. I know some people will say, oh, put your trainer difficulty on 0 and then it'll be easy. But watts are watts, really. I mean, if your trainer difficulty is on 0 and you want to do 250 watts, you're just going to have to click the cassette up a few times and your flywheel will be spinning a different speed. But really, watts are watts. I could have my trainer difficulty on 0, or I could have my trainer difficulty on 100, and I'm not going to be able to go, like my FTP is right around 295. Oh yeah, cool little train that goes up the mountain there. That's cool. I think that goes to the ski resort in real life, which we're kind of coming up to. We got another rider here. But yeah, my FTP is right around 295, and I suspect that if I went full stick, this would probably be about an hour-long climb. I think I could probably hold 285 up it, but maybe that's a video I'll do in the future where I try and do max effort climbs on the same climb, maybe like a week apart or something, so that I'm, fully prepared or whatever. But do max effort climbs and try to do one at a 0% trainer difficulty and one at 100% trainer difficulty. I think that it'll be the same either way. Your FTP is your FTP and you can't go over it. It maybe just takes a little bit more skill to pace correctly when your resistance is changing a little bit based on the gradient. But especially for something like this where I'm not racing, I'm just riding and I want to stay mentally engaged, I actually like having the trainer difficulty way up. Keeps me paying attention to the course, keeps me paying attention to the gradient, and gives me something to focus on. Like when I'm racing, I'm focusing on holding the wheel and focusing on staying in the draft and focusing on covering the right moves. So it just gives me something other than just turning the pedals and staring at the screen to focus on. So notice the little thumbs up ride on logo right there, painted on the road. And now I'm getting a power up. This is the first little secret thing that I've noticed that nobody's talking about. Seems like, and this happened a couple of times through the ride, that this is such a long climb and there's not a bunch of like arches or finishing sprints or segments or whatever. Like on other courses, when you go under a sprint banner, it'll give you one, or when you go through the start finish of a crit circuit, that kind of stuff will give you a power up. And this one is long. I think for a lot of people, this will probably be over a 2-hour climb. So I think that Zwift, in order to break that up, they were trying to, maybe incorporate the sort of Tour de France flair with like stuff painted on the road, but they, made it their own little thumbs up ride on symbol. And I think those act as the power up. It's a lot like the little box with the question mark in it in Mario Kart, the original one. You roll over it, you get a power up. And I think that's going to break the climb up for people, keep people engaged, feel like they've got some sort of like intermediate checks. Because this climb doesn't have, if you're used to riding Alpe d'Huez Zwift, every hairpin of Alpe d'Huez is kind of breaking the climb up into these little segments and giving you time checks and giving you average power. So that's a clever way to like make you feel like you're accomplishing something as you're going, because again, for a lot of people this is going to be a long day out. Speaking of a long day, I had to go full Schleck Brothers style here, full Schleck unzipped jersey. I thought maybe I could get away with the super lightweight jersey since I wasn't going to really go all out, but it still gets hot if you're putting down an effort for this amount of time and not ever letting off the pedals. It gets hot. Speaking of which, I completed some challenge recently and got a code for Le Col clothing, and they make an indoor jersey that's supposed to be, I think, if I'm looking at it right, it's just kind of a mesh jersey, which is a lot like what I wear. A lot of my races, I'll wear one of those mesh base layers. I think the evaporation, like the transmission of the water off of you, just because it's more surface area, you're kind of getting rid of that water faster, and because it's completely mesh, you're still feeling the air directly to your skin. So I feel like at least until those things get totally soaked, I'm a little bit cooler wearing that. That also gives me a place to jam an ice sock down my back, so I kind of like it. And, I mean, also for these videos, it just looks less stupid to be wearing something. So if anyone has that Le Col indoor jersey, tell me, is it actually okay to ride with? I mean, I see a lot of the sponsored riders riding with it, but of course they have to for their streams or whatever. So I don't know, contemplating getting that. So look around right here. You can see I'm kind of leaving the lower slopes, which are the like lush green. You got the little animals on the side there. Kind of leaving like the lush green section of the course and entering the more, you got the big rocks jutting out, and that's the big transition that, especially on this side of the climb, sort of goes through a few zones. And I would say this is kind of the mixed area of the course, where you're getting a little bit of the lush greenery from the bottom and a little bit of the lunar rock from the top, all kind of working together right here. Again, all this stuff is beautifully rendered, so I just wanted to show what it all looks like. So it's a little hard to tell, but if I'm doing my math right, somewhere right around here is where Froome famously ran into the back of the motorbike, had a bike problem, and just started running up the climb. That's one of the big Ventoux moments that's in my cycling wheelhouse. I was definitely watching live when that happened and losing my mind. And, you know, I don't love watching Froome. I guess I'm not a fan or a hater, but, you know, he's got kind of a robotic style and doesn't look great on the bike. I think he might actually look better running than riding. So that was maybe not the worst thing that could have happened to him. Certainly an interesting moment in the race, but huge respect. Yeah, I think it might have been this corner right here, or one of these corners like it, where the motorbike had to slow up because the crowds were coming in too close and just messed it up. But yeah, definitely respect to Froome for that. I don't even want to say level-headedness, but just like tenacity to, well, my bike's broken and I need to keep going up this climb, so I'm just going to start running. Like, that kind of grit and determination or whatever, that's the kind of stuff that makes this climb legendary. It makes the whole sport of cycling great. So just wanted to mention that. And cool little Zwift van right here. I think I flipped the camera around to get a good look at it. It's cool that they added these horn sounds, so like as you're coming by these spots where there's a bunch of cars parked and people on the side, get a little bit of that crowd noise, a little bit of the like honking at you that you're used to hearing when you watch the tour broadcast. So that definitely gives you the vibe a little bit. Okay, so here's the second thing I wanted to really point out is coming up right here, kind of dead on. You can see it now. There's this gravel track going off to the side, and obviously they're just rendering what is there accurately, but I am wondering, and this is based on, as I'm going up the climb, I'm noticing more of those little turnoffs. in time, if they're not going to also include some of these little gravel towpaths and stuff as rideable routes, either in the style of Repack Ridge where it like flips you onto a mountain bike, or maybe they're just gravel routes that are there to be ridden however, and there's none of the virtual steering stuff. But I noticed there are a lot of them going up the climb here, and I'm going to continue pointing them out. And there are some that you can see they actually did like render the whole road. It like snakes around other parts of the world here. And the reason I mention that is it doesn't seem like, and I don't know, I'm not a programmer, but it doesn't seem like it would take too much more architecture to just make those rideable routes also, and add the existing rolling resistance algorithms on top of them and stuff. And so you can see one up on the right here, top right. I noticed that as I'm riding, and this was what really gave me, I mean, you can see the road that goes up to the castle over there, but that doesn't look accessible because you got this huge body of water. Maybe it is, but yeah, I'm pointing at it right now. Up there, I'm noticing there's a road that kind of goes up that hill, and it looks like sort of a tow path. It might even be paved, I don't know, but they did build those roads in, and I think all they would have to do to make them rideable routes is just kind of go through and designate it as rideable, however they do that, but just like give your avatar a path to follow and create a turnoff. Now, my next question as I was thinking this is, okay, but do those actually sync back up to this route, or do they just go off into the ether? So as I'm riding along, this question is answered for me just a little ways up the road. On the left and the right here, I'm noticing a couple more of these paths, and it looks like the ones that I was just looking at, looks like they sync back up with the road. You can kind of see them both there on the left and the right. So it just, I mean, I don't know, maybe they're not far enough to really make anything out of it, but I would not be surprised if you see those become rideable routes in the, I don't know if that's the near future or the distant future. It does seem like Zwift has spent a lot of time and energy, or not even time, they've spent a lot of energy because they've done it in a really short time, getting all of these routes for the tour shorn up and getting everything ready to go. So I wonder how much of their like development budget they've kind of sunk into just getting the roads that are going to be actually raced on for this virtual Tour de France event made up. I mean, you can see right here, I'm trying to flip the camera around to get a better view of it, but all of this, the running water, all of these rocks and stuff, this definitely took a lot to render, pretty faithfully. Looks like an eagle flying around up top. This all looks like it's rendered pretty faithfully, and I'm not going one-to-one to the real climb. I have looked at a few snapshots though, and they definitely got the vibe right, and I'm sure there are so many purists that have watched so many tours. The stuff's not going to be exact, but they know what they have to get right, and they know that they got to put a lot of work into it. They cannot just phone this one in, and it looks, like to my eye, it looks like they have not just phoned it in. I wonder how much all of that hard work is going to eat into their further budget and further development. And yeah, see, here we go again to the right here. This looks like another little road off to the side that could just be some sort of alternative route. Trying to get a look at it there. I don't know. It makes a lot of sense to me. You already built it. You already rendered it. You already did all of the stuff. You just got to snap a course down on top of it. So I don't know. That's something it seems really possible to me. And especially with the popularity, prevalence of gravel right now, I know Zwift is trying to get in on that with like the jungle route and that stuff, but I think if they're smart, they're gonna realize they need to be doing more. This is total wishful thinking on my part, and there's no reason to believe they would actually do this. Now we're just getting into some wild speculation, but I wish they would make some of the white roads of Tuscany do like a Strada Bianca route or something like that. Um, I think that would scratch the itch both for like historical cycling routes, which I guess that's not super historical, although those roads have been used in perpetuity for a bunch of stuff. And right here's another of these thumbs up and power up. So yeah, that does seem to be the case, that those thumbs up painted on the road, and they're kind of inconspicuous. So I have not seen anyone else talking about that or noticing that. Maybe they have, and I just haven't seen it. But I've been looking for a lot of this France content, and wanted to make this because I hadn't seen quite this in depth of a deep dive. Taking a bite of the banana here. I did know I was going to have to stay pretty well fueled if I was going to actually do this 2 ascents thing. It's going to be about 3-4 hours in the saddle, so got to stay on top of the hydration and the nutrition as always. Just to finish that thought about the Strada Bianca thing, that would scratch the itch both for some pro tour cycling context for the route, and also the gravel stuff. That race has a bunch of the white roads of Tuscany, which are this kind of crushed gravel surface. But yeah, so I think that would be a good way to split the difference for them, or not even split the difference, but just, the like road cycling purists, the same people that are excited about this route because it is, it's the route from the tour. Those people would be able to get excited, I would hope, because Strada Bianca, despite having a pretty short history, is one of the best races on the calendar, I think. If you watch, I guess it was 2 years ago, on one of the last few climbs, Wout van Aert, just his legs lock up and he falls over. I mean, it's an amazing race. Great stuff to watch. But yeah, that would give them sort of both worlds, because it would also, for anyone who's excited about gravel for the sake of gravel, those people would, be excited about new gravel routes. So I also wanted to skip forward to this bit because there's some cool, these cars and tents on the side like you see. And this is also getting to that point where this climb gets up above the line where there's enough oxygen for plants to grow. So right here, this is where it's starting to kind of open up. The grass is getting more sparse. The trees are only evergreens, and you're getting a lot more of this just bare rock surface. And I went ahead and used my power up because I didn't know when I was going to get another section under 5%. And yeah, you can see it, another one of those little roads right there, right above my head. But I wanted to talk about this transition point into the sort of more lunar landscape at the top, and the reason for that being the thin air. I mean, obviously on Zwift, I'm still breathing close to sea level here, but the reason that the route is the way it is, looks the way it looks. And one of the other, famous Ventoux things is Eddie Merckx really pushing himself in 70, I guess. I should look that up, but someone fact check me there. I believe it was 70, really pushing himself to the brink and getting to the top, and someone like James Brown style coming over and giving him oxygen, like putting the cape on James Brown. He like collapsed. And I guess this was also a good spot to cut to, because we've got the iconic El Diablo balloon up here. We've got the pitchforks painted on the road, and then we've got the balloon of the Jumping Devil Man. First appeared in like the mid-90s tours, and he's become a staple of the tour, high-fiving the riders. He's in the devil costume. He's always on the hard climbs, Ventoux specifically, and he's, high-fiving riders and getting people hyped up. So that's a cool little homage to him. We've got 3 of the little thumbs up here, but they're not centered in the road, and I think that's the reason why I did not get a power up there. So don't be thrown off by that. It seems like only the big centered one, that's where you're going to get the power up. And I think the reason they didn't give me a power up right there is because you're going to get one at the KOM arch right here, which this is at Chalet Renard, where it's a little coffee shop. And this is where, right here where I am, is where the virtual Tour de France is going to finish on this stage. They're not going all the way up, and I think that's in the interest of time. Zwift wants to keep these stages short and watchable, but yeah, that arch you were just looking at and that chalet coffee shop, that's where they will be finishing on the stage they're doing up this in the virtual Tour de France. I think in real life that would be where you want to stop and get a coffee and fuel up for this last little bit, because it is about to get very barren between here and the top. Here we are more fully into the lunar landscape, and a couple more little chalets and stuff before it really opens up, but this is the point where the vegetation starts to disappear, and we got another little thumbs up and power up spot here. See if it gives me anything that's actually useful at all. Although there are a couple of, oh no, not useful at all, because there aren't really many riders, so I'm just going to burn that power up. But there are a couple of little flattish spots up here. So this is the part in real life that would be very windy, which, as we all know, there's no wind on Zwift. There is wind on CV Arcade, which maybe I should do some CV Arcade videos. I had a frustrating time trying to get going on CV Arcade, trying to get everything paired. But I do like the idea that it has wind. I do like the idea that the whole point is to make it an e-sport, so it's really focused around that. Now, they don't have any iconic climbs like this, so if I was just going for a ride, just riding around, trying to enjoy a ride, I probably would not do it on CV Arcade. In fact, I definitely wouldn't. I haven't. But yeah, this wind is something that would be really hard to recreate in the Zwift engine, but especially with racing, because of how all the positioning works. But in real life, on real Ventoux, this would be very windy because you're losing all of that tree cover and it's just totally exposed. This is why they call it the Bald Mountain among all the other names for it. The Giant of Provence, the Beast of Provence, but this is the bald part of the Bald Mountain. I should have done this at the bottom, but my mind is starting to wander this deep into the climb, and I'm looking for something to do. Had to take the helmet off because that was a weird little period of time in cycling where you had to wear a helmet, but you were allowed to take it off if the race finished on a climb, and you could take it off like within a certain K of the end, or like at the base of the climb, something like that. So gotta honor that by finishing helmetless, and also just giving myself something to focus on mentally, because I'm getting pretty beat down by the climb at this point. This tunnel is a cool little feature. Wanted to make sure I included in the video. It's something to look forward to. It's kind of a gateway to like the final section of the climb. Once you have gone through this, beyond a certain point, there aren't really too many more markers to look for. And like I said, this is different from Alpe du Zwift because you don't have the hairpins to count. And maybe this comes from just being a guy who races shorter stuff, cyclocross, things with laps or things with features. I'm always trying to like break an effort down into, okay, like when I'm doing Alpe du Zwift, I'm trying to just look at the section I'm on, the hairpin I'm on, what average power do I want to hit, what average power did I hit on the last one, and give myself like a one foot in front of the other kind of stair-stepping mentality, because if you think of everything in totality, it's too much. It's you can't wrap your mind around it, and you're going to get discouraged. So I like having those little markers, if only to break the effort up. And I like that they rendered the mist right here coming up the mountain. That looks really good, looks really cool. Has that Ventoux like ominous kind of vibe, which honestly, when I think Zwift, I don't think ominous. It does have kind of like a cartoony feel, which, I don't know, I got mixed feelings on it. I like it for some things, not for others, but I like that they included the mist right there for sure. So this was a controversy before it even happened on the Zwift Facebook and forums and all that, what they were going to do with the Tom Simpson Memorial, because they do like to make things a little cartoony, a little cute. I'm glad they just rendered this as it is. That's the memorial to Tom Simpson, who died racing on Ventoux. His heart just stopped. He was on a bunch of stuff, but, still super sad to see somebody struck down while racing. So that is the spot where he died, and I think a lot of people were skeptical that Zwift was gonna honor that. It's pretty common that people will leave little trinkets and water bottles and leave things on the little stair steps of that monument. But yeah, I think it's cool that, especially this section of Ventoux is pretty austere. I mean, that's sort of like what it's known for. So I'm glad they just rendered that as is and didn't try to get too cute or cartoony with it, or just leave it out because it doesn't like fit the thing. So hats off to Zwift right there. I think that was probably the right move. So I'm deep into my effort, and I'm getting my first look at the meteorological station at the top, which is apparently also used to broadcast television signals now. But at the top of the mountain, there's this whole compound here that has some, I'm assuming, like weather radars and that kind of stuff, and also it's used to broadcast TV signals, which makes a lot of sense. I guess you got a clear signal from up here. There's not really anything blocking, but yeah, that's what this tower is. And a lot of times when the tour finishes at the top, that's one of the like iconic pictures you'll get, is coming around these last few bends, and you can see that tower sticking up in the background. So that means you're closing in. This last little bit here is a little bit deceptive because it kind of flattens out for a second and you feel like I'm right here and I can lay off the power, but right here it just kicks back up a little bit. And yeah, you can tell they've added some crowd noise and stuff. They got the cutesy little squirrel balloon here, like I was saying, a little cartoony. But yeah, so it looks like you only get 420 XP for that climb, or for the whole, this is the Ven Top is the name of the route. Yeah, here it is. Looks like you only get 420 XP for that route, which seems maybe a little bit incongruous with the degree of difficulty there, but that's pretty much it for this video. I'm going to have another one where I go head-to-head with this version of the Ascent and the RGT version of the Ascent, and to kind of talk about similarities and differences. I'm not really going to pick a winner, but just compare the two, because right after I got done with this one, I turned around, I shut Zwift down and loaded up RGT and got straight to work. So yeah, I'll throw a link in here to my crit comparison video that I've already got up between Zwift and RGT. But I think these are sort of the two platforms for e-cycling. They're definitely my two favorite for racing and riding. So yeah, thanks for watching. Like and subscribe, all that stuff.